One of the best books to learn endgames can be this one. Why? Because Capablanca is known as one of the best endgame players of all time, and this book practically gives you 60 completed games in which the author at a certain point show you a critical endgame position, and from there it starts to actually deeply explain and annotate that endgame for us. Of course, don't forget that it's always our responsibility to try to be active in learning. So we try to guess the move, what will be the next move and why. Okay? So with that said, we go to game 3 of this book that was played between Marshall as white and Capablanca as black. This was the 5th match game played in New York in 1909, so more than 100 years ago. It's a Queen's Gambit decline, and here it gives an introduction to the game, saying nobody but nobody ever used the tactical weapon of Zwischenzug to such good effect as Capablanca. This witty interposition of an unexpected move before making an obvious reply, such as a recapture, usually changes the state of affair. There may be no intent to disconcert the opponent, but it often gives him a bit of a jolt. Capablanca's game about this clever little Zwischenzug, and they offer evidence of the thought he gave to even the most natural moves before making them. Okay, the game starts with d4, d5, c4, e6, knight c3, knight f6, bishop g5, bishop e7, e3, knight e4. Capablanca knew little opening theory at the time, but was impressed by Lasker's success with this move against Marshall and decided to try it himself. Bishop takes e7, queen takes e7. And now there is bishop e3, d3, sorry. Knight takes c3, b2 takes c3, knight d7, knight f3, castle, queen c2, h6. Obviously he was attacking there, right? Castle, c5, rook f e1, d takes c4, bishop takes c4, and b6. And here white plays queen e4. Capablanca points out that this attractive looking move not only gains white no advantage, but practically compels black to post his pieces to good effect. His bishop at b7, the knight at f6, and the rook at c8 and d8, from which squares they can attack the center. So obviously the only move at the moment is rook b8. Bishop d3, threatening checkmate there, knight f6. So yes, we are seeing that white is playing a lot of moves that are advantageous for black because he wants to put his pieces there, right? Queen f4, attacking this, bishop b7, they are connected now, e4, rook f d8, rook a d1, and rook b8 c8. Black's moves are timed, says Hermann Helms, with a precision that discloses the mind of a master player. Rook e1 e3. White's position looks imposing, but a few sharp moves by Capablanca expose the weakness. C takes d4, c takes d4. So now Capablanca has a majority on this side. This means he can create a pass pawn. A pass pawn can be something of a problem, right? Rook c8, c3, bishop d3, b1, and now there is a good move that Capablanca played. As we can see, Chernev in the introduction said that Capablanca was really a master in the Zwischenzug, the intermediate move. So pause the video and try to guess what Capablanca played as black. The move Capablanca played was g5, which is a good move because it's attacking the queen instead of immediately retaking, right? But now, obviously, white takes on g5. So what happened here? That black didn't take back there, it took this rook. And after this, he played another Zwischenzug. So what would you play if you were Capablanca in this position? You are black, right? So pause the video and try to find out the move. He played knight g4, queen g3, and finally Capablanca takes back. So this is been very interesting, right? And of course we see that Capablanca ended up with a material advantage. How does white continue here? Well, in the book they show that it could have continued with this, but it's not a good idea because you cannot really stop the threats that come from this position. In the game, Marshall played h4, after which black continued with queen g7, and now queen c7. And once more, I urge you to pause the video and try to find out what would be Capablanca's next move. Capablanca is black, right? Now, remember that sometimes in a position, especially in the real games, you can find more than one move that is the best. In this case, Capablanca played rook d8 takes d4, but in the comment to the game, Capablanca said, look, that also this move, queen f6, is a better move than rook takes d4. Why? Because it provides a flight square for the king, defend that, and is threatening here. Okay, so a really multi-purpose move. Okay, but let's see what happened in the game. Rook takes d4, and here white obviously doesn't take immediately on b7, but he plays check. King h7, e5, check. That's why it was important the escape square, okay, on g7, because it would avoid this discovery check. Bishop e4, rook takes d4, and bishop takes b1. And then it's here that Chernev, after this move, start to say, this is the endgame that I choose this game for. So this is the endgame I would like to teach you. This is the position, right? Here it starts to evaluate the position, saying black has a bit of material advantage with knight and bishop, so knight and bishop against rook. He will try to initiate an attack on the king while keeping a weather high open on the white's potentially dangerous queen-rook pawn, because this could become the passed pawn, right? So here Capablanca played knight takes e5. This move obviously is a big threat, right? Can you see what is threatening? It's threatening knight f3, check, and taking the whole rook. So obviously Marshall saw the threat and moved away from that. But of course it's not over. Why is not over? Because Capablanca obviously is a master also of disguise. He plays bishop e4. And now you say, haha, he left me an entire bishop, I can take it. No, you can't. Why? Because if you take it, there is knight f3, right? And if you go here on f1, from knight f3 goes d2, forking the king and taking back the rook, right? So not a good idea. But you say, but I will escape here in h1. So rook takes e4, knight f3, and I escape here. Unfortunately, once the knight is here, this diagonal is open. And so there is queen a1 check, after which you cannot escape here because the knight f3 is controlling these two squares, right? And so the next move is obviously rook e1, queen takes e1, and this checkmate. Again, I don't do the moves over the board because you need to be able to visualize at least a couple of moves, at least, especially in a chess game. That will definitely improve your chess. I remember when I was in Italy that there was a candidate master, so someone around 2100, that he was reading books without the chessboard. And so he was visualizing the moves of the lines, of the annotations in his head. And he was also trying to go from one diagram to the other. Obviously, it's important that there is a diagram at least every 5 moves to do that, so one can actually check if the position in his head is correct. Okay. So after bishop e4, we saw that the bishop is kind of poisonous, right? So you cannot take it. What do you do? Well, Marshall played g3, so he created an escape, or at least an avoid a problem. Knight f3, check, king g2, f5. And now there is queen here taking the b6. Why? Because obviously now white has a passed pawn that must be blocked in some ways, right? Instead of exchanging there. So what do you think black will play? What do you think Capablanca will play in this move? In this point. So try to pause the video and see what is the next move. I think it's quite simple because it's a discovery check, right? Knight takes h4. Obviously, once more, you needed to find the right square for your king as white. The right one is here. If you go here, it's a problem. Try to see why, but it's always relative to this queen a1, okay? And then goes here and is checkmate. So that's why you needed to try to keep your king there to control that square. After which, Capablanca gives check again. And now white decided to remove this dangerous knight from the board and have an endgame in which obviously he has a pawn that maybe can become a queen, and so he thinks maybe black will have to sacrifice the bishop in order to block that pawn. Okay, so let's see what happens. Queen takes e6, bishop e4, because you want to control this, not to give it to him. f3, bishop d3, queen d5. As you can see, he continued to attack two pieces at one, but now finally Capablanca can start to attack. And after this, he plays bishop d3 on b1, attacking the pawn. Okay, that's kind of interesting. And here there was a comment by Capablanca that said, "It is from now on," says Capablanca, "that it can be said that I played well. The ending is worth studying." So let's see why this ending is worth studying. a4, queen a1, the queen now attacks the passed pawn, and at the same time he threatens a discovery check, attacking this queen, right? So that's kind of a problematic. Queen b7 check, but be careful, because if you play this, it will go here, and then he can take here, or you need to exchange, and then of course black wins, because he's able to stop this without problems. So he went on b7, giving check, and black played king g6, queen b6, and also here there is a reason why white didn't give the check here. He wants his queen on a black square out of a range of this possible discovery attack, right? Because if you put it here, he can play this attack. So that's one of the problems, right? And he wants also to be able to protect this pawn when he moves once ahead. So that's the reason why queen b6 was played. King h5, king h2, and bishop a2. So what do you think it's going on for white now? Because this position, it seems, appeared in Chess Review in June of 1933 in the column Mistakes of a Master, and also in Dumont Basis of Combination. Practically there is 4 or 5 books that are mentioned, no? So let me see what he says and summarize it for you. So the comment at this point in the endgame was all related to this c6 square, because it seems in many books appear that there was a possibility to give a checkmate, but the author Chernev doesn't believe it. The problem is that both the author and Capablanca and Marshall, that played this game more than 50 years before, and the critics of that position, they all didn't have access to computer. Otherwise they would have seen immediately if it was true or not that he could give a checkmate or not. For me, I have seen the idea. The idea practically is that if he's here, he gives check, the other guy goes here, check here, and then if he goes here, there is a checkmate here. Again, I think Marshall and Capablanca, they definitely were able to see stuff like that, because these were players, especially Marshall, that lived out of this kind of combinations. So it's kind of strange. Let's see how it continues, okay? So now he plays Queen b5, okay? And there is that threat that I just told you, check here, no? And then, or there is a check here that gives a checkmate, right? If he plays here is a checkmate. So what does he play? He plays g6, king g6, a5, queen a1, d4, check, queen f6, check, queen f7, and now he puts the queen behind the pawn. He goes here, and now he cannot give check anymore because the queen is controlling, so he plays a6. But now it's black that can give check. And so what did black play? Queen e2, king h3, bishop d5, controlling that and starting to create the opportunity, and then after a7 there is bishop takes f3, and of course now there is a mate into that is threatened here, right? Because check here, it goes here, and here you have checkmate. Okay, it seems that this was one of Capablanca best endgames. I would like to return back to that position now that we have seen all the rest, and understand what happens if, let's see, I think the position was something like this and like this, right? So in this position, no, because we said that he was like this, so the problem was this discovery check. So let's see a little. The king was here, okay, and so the queen was probably be given the check here. The king goes here, and he gave a check here instead of here, okay? After this, there is this. And at this point, if I'm correct in the position, they say that the point is the following. That if you play this, obviously, no, there is that checkmate that I told you. Check, duck, check. If you go here, there is this, okay? So if you go instead here, at the point there is the checkmate. No, sorry, it's not here, it's here. Here is the checkmate. Wow. Okay. But yeah, the point, however, is that probably he wouldn't have played this one, all right? I don't think he would have not seen this thing, Capablanca, right? However, it's an interesting thing. Eventually, guys, I wish you to check the game, maybe with a computer, and see if there is something about it, because this book was printed in 1978. So in 1978 they didn't have engines that would see if there was a checkmate or not. I thank you for watching and see you next time.